We've been vegan for a while now, but what changed for us since we quit all the animal products?
And let's not forget about the infamous B12.
And what about breast milk and veganism?
Let's take a deep dive
in a couple to go. Welcome to the 6th episode of our podcast,
Hello.
A Couple to Go. We haven't seen each other for so long. Heard each other actually.
Are we supposed to start these things again? I don't remember.
It has been like 10 months? Even longer, I think.
Oh, probably. We had some COVID technical difficulties, so...
Gosh darn, it has been maybe almost a year. I don't even know. Oh, this feels so weird recording it.
Yeah, we were thinking about recording one while you were in Slovakia, but I think it just would have been such a mess in terms of editing to record like a Zoom podcast or something.
Me and Michael basically have been apart for 9 months because of COVID. I went home to see my family, and then I got stuck there. I got stuck in Slovakia, and it took me forever to be able to come back home.
Yeah, at the time I think your visitor visa was also ending, so you had to leave. You just didn't leave just to go see your family. You had to, and then
no, I still had some time.
But I think you only had like 2 months.
This is completely irrelevant now. Okay, so today we wanted to talk about veganism. We are both vegan. I think it's been like, 2 years? A year and a half?
Probably approaching the 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, and we started being vegan or like trying out veganism about the same time, both together. I was trying to be more plant-based a year before that already, and Michael kind of quit cold turkey and became vegan overnight.
Yeah, well, I kind of wanted to try for a while, but then, doing it as a couple I felt was easier for me. I feel like it was like something we were doing more like together. It helps that Natalia's actually a good cook, so,
Thank you.
Also, a little side note here that's not veganism related. We now have a cat. So if you hear the little monster meowing, which is very possibly gonna happen because he does meow a lot, well, it's a cat.
It's kind of funny now that we have a cat now when we are vegan, because cats are obligate carnivores. That means Marvin needs to eat meat. I know that there are some like vegan cat food supplements. But
really? I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, but I'm not 100% sure. Like I think there's still not enough research. I'm like, don't quote me on this. I'm not 100% sure. I know that dogs can be vegan, and it's usually not such a big issue because they're omnivores.
Yeah. Dogs definitely eat more vegetables than cats.
Yeah.
I know some cats can enjoy like certain degree of like vegetables, like eating cucumbers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not all of them. Like Marvin.
Or like carrots and stuff.
Yeah.
But Marvin, everything that does not...
Oh, Marvin's the name of the cat, by the way.
Oh yeah, sorry. Marvin is our cat. We wanted to name him Curie, but then when he adopted him, his name was already set, and he was like, we couldn't change his name.
We could change it, but we thought it was so appropriate. We saw him and we're like, oh yeah, he does look like a Marvin. It is
a Marvin. He does look like an old dude.
We're gonna keep the name. He's now 3 years old, so he's not an old dude yet, but the name's gonna be fitting for a while.
Yeah. So anyway, with the veganism, it's funny because the only like animal products we have in our kitchen now is cat food for Marvin.
Yeah, pretty much.
We don't have any meat, any other animal products. It's just for Marvin. And at some point, we even had a whole chicken because we got it from your mom. So we had a whole chicken in our fridge just for Marvin, and the whole rest of the fridge was just vegetables for us.
So when we started our whole process of becoming vegans, my mother was kind of in denial of it, and she ended up bringing a whole chicken, which stayed in the freezer for a while, because obviously we were not eating meat. And then we got Marvin, so the chicken had some use at the end of the day because, Marvin ate the chicken. It was a little treat, and he loved it.
It was kind of interesting with your mom, though, because I think she just thought it's a phase. Like, oh yeah, they're experimenting with it, but they're not gonna stick. or she was thinking that it's like, oh yeah, the vegan means eating more greens.
Well, she also didn't really know what it was. Like, it took me a while to like get her to understand exactly what it entailed in terms of like nutrition. And even now, she's asking me, "Is that vegan? Is that vegan? Like, are you allowed to eat eggs? Are you allowed?" So
It's so easy though. Like I think it's easier to explain than vegetarianism or pescatarianism
There's
or
that, yeah.
whatever, because there's literally no animal products. Point.
yeah.
It's so easy. I don't know. I find it easy to understand, but I know that my dad has struggled with it too,
Yeah.
and he was like, "So you don't even eat like cheese? Yeah, Dad, cheese is from like milk, you know."
Yeah, I was actually surprised though that she was super interested in it after a while. When she got past the phase where she was doubting, she started being more interested in it, and then she was asking me like for certain tips regarding it, or not necessarily recipes, but she was trying to make certain recipes when I was visiting her and stuff like that, just to keep it as vegan as possible.
Which is really sweet. I really
Yeah.
appreciate when people do
Yeah.
it, like people that are not vegan themselves, and then they try
Exactly.
to accommodate you. That's really, really nice. My
Yeah.
grandma was also trying, and then she realized that the traditional mushroom milk soup from Slovakia that she was always making tastes actually better with soy milk. So now she's making it with soy
Yeah.
milk.
There's like, I was really surprised when we did the transition that there's actually certain things that I really enjoy more with vegan products instead of like, what I used to use. Like for coffee, for example, I used to put milk in my coffee. And then I realized that oat milk in coffee is actually a lot better than just regular milk. It just fits coffee really well. It's just earthy.
I honestly
and,
don't like the smell of cow's milk anymore. Especially reheated. Reheated cow's milk is just weird. And I worked in a cafe in Slovakia for like half a year, so I had to smell a lot of cow's milk. But we're gonna get to that. That's something I want to touch on later.
Yeah.
Okay, so much. I guess for the intro, I'm just gonna sum up what we actually want to talk about today. So because of our experience, I guess like now it's long enough that we can reflect back and see what changed for us, what stayed the same, what are our thoughts on veganism, and maybe also some fun or not so fun facts about animal products. Maybe also some problems to run into from time to time, but yeah there's definitely a lot more positives. And I generally can say that going vegan was a really good life choice for multiple reasons.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, and I think it's good that we keep it kind of lighthearted because neither of us is nutritionists. We obviously did some research when it comes to like nutrition and the do's and don'ts of being vegan.
Nutrition and nutrients is actually a really good point, because I think that a lot of people who try to go vegan, they do it wrong. Because they just go vegan without actually looking at the nutrients. Because a lot of people that are omnivores, that eat like the regular diet, they don't really look at ingredients. They don't really know what's in their food. And then they go vegan and they think they can just continue like that. But I think with veganism, you need to have a better understanding of what you eat. I think we all actually should have a better understanding of what we eat.
I think that's honestly one of the positive side that like veganism brought to us, is that we looked more into the kind of food that we eat and what it brings to us. Everyone should be more aware of what they eat,
for
but
sure.
I think it enabled us to do that, and I that's one of the really positive thing that I see, like how being vegan affected us.
Yeah, because the interesting thing is actually that there's so much like media coverage about vegans have not sufficient amounts of this and this vitamin, and B12 is a huge thing. We're gonna get to that.
Yep.
But the truth is that omnivores have the same issues, that there's just some nutrients that vegans need to look at closer and like watch out for more. But it doesn't mean that people who aren't vegan have a perfect diet. There are so many people, there's so much issues with like
100%.
bad diets, and like a lot of health issues come from malnutrition, and malnutrition is a huge issue among
100%.
omnivores as well.
And let's be honest, being vegan doesn't mean you're eating properly.
You can be vegan and eat Oreos all day, which are vegan by the way.
Accidentally vegan.
And stuff like that, or you can go vegan and have a balanced diet with also some Oreos, but I don't know, salad is the first thing that popped to my mind. But vegans don't eat only salads, it's just, I don't know.
Let's stay away from salad. But yeah, no, like...
No, I think that the important word here is like having a balanced
Yeah,
diet.
exactly. Like, because you eat like fried tofu every day, even if it's tofu, it doesn't mean it's going to be healthy. Like, at the end of the day, you're still eating fried stuff, which is...
Yeah, you need to have all the colors of the rainbow in your food, and
yeah, exactly.
That's usually a safe bet to go with.
Exactly. But it's not that hard, I promise. Really not that hard.
I have to say, though, at this point that there are people for who veganism is just not an option because they have some health issues, and I don't want to downplay that. Like my mom, for example, she there's a huge list of foods she can't eat, and she, for example, can't eat any bean products and like bean related plants. I don't know how do you say that in
Not
English.
Sure.
Well, she just has a hard time finding certain nutrients, also protein, because there's just a big list of things you can't eat. So for her, veganism is not really an option. But she doesn't eat a lot of other animal products. She just has to eat meat sometimes, just because she isn't able
to. She
to
can't eat anything else.
Yeah, she just can't. But there are people like this, and obviously also just where you grow up, like country-wise, income-wise, and everything. Like, I'm not gonna pressure a native person to an island where there is just fish to have to try to go vegan. Like, I don't think it's really the ideal is, like, of course, to have everybody be vegan, because that would be the best for the planet and the animals, but it's just not a viable option. Not everybody can go vegan, but that's why it's so important to go more plant-based in richer countries, like in the Western world and East Asia as well, etc.
And that's why I think the nutrition conversation is really interesting. So what we've seen in North America in the past years is that the consumption of meat has been very, very prevalent in nutrition. Like, usually people, when they have a meal, they have a protein, which is usually meat, and then a side dish. So, like, it's very ingrained in the mentality. But if you look at other countries in the world, for India, for example, they have a lot of regions that have a really, really high percentage of vegetarians. And the thing is some of these places, people are not vegetarian necessarily by choice, but because it's just what's available to them. It's a kind of a perspective of opportunity, right? And
yeah, like, even, sorry to jump into this, but even me, I'm coming from Slovakia, and in my family, I've been talking about this with my grandparents. When they were my age, they had meat maybe like once a week, and even that sometimes wasn't the case, like once every 2 weeks or something. And it was usually chicken and like beef. They had maybe like, once a half year or something.
Yeah.
It's not at all comparable to the meat consumption we have nowadays.
And honestly, the part of why I find the discussion so interesting, because obviously it's not a black and white conversation, right? There's a different perspective, different opportunities, and everyone lives according to different standards and different lives. But in general, the goal is to head towards a world where there's less animal products in our everyday consumption, because that's what's best for the planet, that's what's best for us, and for many other reasons.
Or lab-grown meat.
Yeah,
that is true. Also something that I actually would try.
Yeah, 100% would try that as well. We're not quite there yet, but I believe we're getting really, really close. They're actually like been successful attempts of creating like fake meat, I guess, in labs.
It's just not enough yet not fast enough to make it available for everybody.
Yeah, mass production. Yeah. But yeah, the conversation to me is really, I like talking about it because it's about creating a conversation that's healthy and that's respectful about everyone's kind of consumption habit, and see where it's kind of an introspection about our presence and our the consequence of our existence on the world.
Well, I think the ultimate goal is to achieve good health for everyone, for the humans on this planet, for the planet we live on, and for the animals that live on it with us. Because not just the animals that are suffering in the meat production, in the dairy production, etc. It's also the humans. Like, what's going on in slaughterhouses is really something.
Yeah, we were talking about the slaughterhouse situation a few days ago, and I was looking into it, and surprisingly, there's not a lot of studies on the mental impact of, working in a slaughterhouse, which I personally picture it as being a pretty dreadful experience. Like you just see documentaries and videos of like how it is, and I'm just like, I would not want to work in those conditions. It's like it looks very distressing.
But there are some studies that
There are some
on
studies.
mental health.
For example, in the journal Work, they evaluated 137 workers that worked at an industrial beef packing plant in Nebraska, and they found that 4.4% of the workers there had sensory processing disorder, which is about 20% higher than in the general population.
20% higher, that's a big number.
Then yeah, exactly, it's very significant.
And what does it mean?
Basically means that you experience senses differently, whether it be that you're more sensitive to certain things or less sensitive to certain things. In what I read, they didn't really specify if it was more or less, if there was like in slaughterhouse workers, if it was more prevalent towards one or the other. Though I would imagine less sensitive to certain things, but
well, it makes sense to be less sensitive because you are surrounded by not pleasant smells, and usually in like either super brightly LED lit rooms or like darker places, depending on where you work and like which station in the slaughterhouse.
It's also emotionally like
draining.
Yeah, exactly.
Like animals are not quiet when they die. They scream, they cry.
Yeah, some of the workers, when they were getting interviewed, they were reporting nightmares about work, especially in the first, in the beginning, in the first few weeks when they were working there, about like higher anxiety, like very very bad dreams, dreaming about work all the time. So like, I mean, it's easy to imagine this being the case, like because the situation in a slaughterhouse is probably not fun to work with. I can't imagine it being fun.
And I also saw a study, but I don't remember the exact numbers anymore. Like this was a while ago. That talked about also mental health effects on slaughterhouse workers, and it was a study done on PTSD, and it found that working in a slaughterhouse over a certain amount of time can result in similar symptoms as people have that come back from war, like veterans, etc. experience PTSD, and a percentage of slaughterhouse workers do that too. And that's not really something other jobs bring with them. Like you're not gonna have an office worker with PTSD, like maybe somebody, but you know what I'm trying to say here. It's just not a good job. And if you wanna buy the meat that you are gonna have on your plate, somebody has to kill that animal for you. So you are actually helping to support this industry.
And I think at the end of the day, that's kind of like the take that we have when we say like about not consuming meat products, that we don't buy it because it doesn't, at the end of the day, it doesn't encourage this kind of industry that's, one, very very inhuman, and two, that's very very bad for the environment in general.
No, the meat industry, I'm not sure if this is the number one polluter or it's definitely among the top 3 polluters of our planet, especially beef. And just generally, the meat industry is horrible for our planet.
Oh yeah, for sure. If all the farmlands and everything were transitioned like instantly to plant-based agriculture, the impact on the environment is drastically different. I highly encourage you look up some numbers on this. It's insanely impressive. Like the difference is astonishing.
And people will often say like, oh yeah, soy, but all the vegans, soy has a big impact on the planet, like soybeans, but all the vegans are eating it, blah blah. Yeah, but like 80% of the soya beans that are being produced are to feed animals. And even if the number of vegans would be higher, you would still need less soya to feed the vegan population. Even if the whole world would go vegan, you still need less than to feed all the animals. And also water. Like there's a huge water crisis. It's insane how much water. I'm gonna actually look up some numbers because this is really something.
And the really interesting thing about this too is that yes, soy is not the greatest thing in terms of agriculture, but the more people actually have a plant-based nutrition, the more alternatives and the more other products get like grown and developed. Like lentils, for example. Lentils are like not damaging at all for the environment, or like a lot less than other products, and they're a great source of a lot of nutrients that you need. And then we can transition to numbers that you have.
Yeah, so the water footprint on food. One beef steak takes 674 gallons of water to produce it.
That's a lot of water, isn't it?
A hamburger includes the bread, meat, lettuce, and tomato is 660 gallons, but like the biggest chunk of it is of course the meat. And I'm just quick for comparison. 1 cup of coffee takes 34 gallons, and 1 bowl of salad, including tomato, lettuce, cucumbers, like the whole bunch of vegetables, is just 21 gallons compared to the 674 for 1 steak.
Yeah, the difference is it's crazy. But to get away from the numbers a little bit and come back to our experiences out of it, for you, how did you experience the year and a half? Did you were you curious at some point to go back and try meat, or like did you have some cravings, or how was it?
So I didn't really have big cravings up until now. When I was in Slovakia, there was like a year later, and I was just curious. It wasn't even a craving. I was curious to see how meat tastes to me now. If I still enjoy it, because I loved meat. I really loved meat. I loved ham. I loved also steaks and etc. And I was just curious. I wasn't staying at my parents' place when I was in Slovakia, and they eat meat, so they would have regular ham. Plus, I bought for myself some vegan ham that's made out of, I think that one specifically was mainly made out of peas.
Okay.
And I was comparing those two. I didn't eat a lot, but I took 1 slice of the regular ham and I tried it, and I just had such a different memory of how it tasted like. Now when I tried it, it was just salty. Yeah. It didn't have any taste to me right now. It was just salty. And the vegan ham was so much tastier to me. I tried the same thing with chicken too, with like a little piece of chicken. Same thing. It just didn't taste anything the meat to me. It tasted like the spices you prepared it with.
And I can totally relate to that experience, because I work in the event industry, right? And the big thing about the event industry that's really bad is that there's a lot of food waste, and I think in restoration in general it's a big issue, but in the event industry especially it's really, really bad. It happens that once we get to the end of an event, food's about to be thrown out, right? And personally, if there's, for example, if there's a pieces of lamb or whatever at the end of the event and it's about to be thrown in the garbage, even if I don't buy and consume animal products in my life, in my everyday life, if it's about to be thrown in the garbage, I'd rather eat it if I'm hungry than throw it in the garbage. And personally, I don't have a problem with that. I know some people would have an issue with that, like being vegan and then
that doesn't mean that Michael eats a lot of meat. Exactly. It happens sometimes. Well, now during COVID, you weren't working, exactly. So I guess now you were actually vegan when you want to be strict about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just, in Michael's case, it's gonna go either in the garbage or in Michael's belly. And that animal died for this meat to be able to be served.
Exactly. So what's worse, the animal died and then got thrown in the garbage, or the animal died and then actually was...
Michael gets at least some nutrients from it.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not ideal.
Yeah.
But in this situation, it just... Imagine dying and then being thrown away in the garbage.
Exactly. And dying, and the reason you died is because you were to be used as food, and then you're thrown out in the garbage, and not actually I just feel like it's a bigger waste of a life. If and I know it's kind of tricky, but I don't know. For me, it feels better to, if I can avoid it, I don't. At the end of the day, at the end of an event, if there's all kinds of stuff that's going in the garbage, and I can avoid eating meat, I'm gonna avoid eating the meat, because I don't particularly enjoy eating the meat anymore. To refer back to Natalia's experience, when I try it, it basically just feels like the spices as well. Like a piece of steak, for example, it tastes like the steak spices, like the salt, the pepper, like everything that comes with it. The steak itself, like I find that usually it doesn't have anything special in terms of taste.
And Michael used to love steak before he went vegan.
Exactly. So and it's the same thing for a lot of other products as well, right? I just feel like
we've been growing up with these tastes, so we got used to them, and we liked them because that's what we ate during childhood, etc., and during the biggest part of our life. And now when we got our taste buds used to something else, we realized that we actually don't really like it that much, and it was more out of just habits.
And that's something that's really big in when I talk about my veganism with other people that are not necessarily vegans. I find that I have a really easy time connecting with people, and I work with chefs, I work with waiters, I work with a lot of people that for them they would never quit eating meat. But when I have the discussion with them, I don't feel like they're against the view of it. I just feel like when they talk with people about veganism, they always feel like they are being heavily judged, like how there's no like perspective, and there's no it's just a black and white statement.
Yeah, and this is something I really hate too, either from vegans themselves or from people outside of other people. That either you are 100% vegan or you're not a vegan, and that is just not viable for everybody. And also I think shaming somebody for it, that's not gonna help to reduce all these issues. Like I call myself vegan, but I wouldn't say I'm 100% vegan. I may be like 98% vegan, just because there are sometimes situations where there isn't another option. Like, for example, when I travel and I fly, for example, in planes, there is not always a vegan alternative. Now they are introducing more and more vegetarian alternatives, but many times it happened to me that when I was going back home or work-wise, I was flying somewhere, I couldn't bring any food on a plane, depending on the company, depending on the airport, the place where I fly to, etc. Sometimes I can bring like a snack bar or like something with me, but sometimes I can't bring any food on the plane. And what am I supposed to do when I'm flying to Japan, for example, for modeling, and the flight is like 70 hours or sometimes even longer? I'm not supposed to eat anything. Oh, 17, sorry. I'm not supposed to eat anything during 17 hours. Like, no, of course I'm gonna eat something. And if there is a vegetarian option, I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna try to not eat animal food, but if I have to, if it's that or starving.
And I think we have to be logical about the conversation as well, right? Because being realistic, the world is not going to go vegan tomorrow.
No, of course.
And that creates a situation where the important thing is to connect people with the idea more than trying to force them into it.
And also, of course, not just people, but companies and governments, etc. I mean, you see it also, demand is very important, and like choices of people, you see that there is a higher demand for it, and then therefore there's a lot more vegan products nowadays that there have been a few years ago. And the market is growing and growing, which is amazing. And you see that the dairy and meat industry are pushing back. Like, I don't know if you noticed this. I also don't know if this is a thing everywhere, but in Europe, for example, there was now a huge debate over dairy products and dairy alternatives.
Okay.
So if you want to buy some oat milk or some almond milk, etc., you on the package it cannot say milk. It would be like almond drink, oat drink, etc. Because the milk industry is so scared that people are gonna buy the vegan alternative instead, that they were lobbying hard and like trying to push governments to ban the use of word milk to make it exclusive to the dairy industry. But this year there actually has been an overturn for this legislative, and now plant-based dairy alternatives can be called milks again.
Really?
Because this is so honestly confusing. Like, take the example of it's also stupid, but it's also very confusing for the consumer, because take the example of coconut. There is a difference between coconut water or like a coconut like liquid and coconut milk. And if both is named coconut beverage, coconut drink, then how the hell are you supposed to know the difference?
Yeah, exactly.
And the meat industry has been doing like the same shenanigan. When you walk through the store, like next time you walk to the supermarket, try to go to the aisle with the vegan products and just notice the names. Like, for example, sausage in Slovak is parky, and so the vegan sausages would not be called parky but vegarki, or like a similar word, like a word. Yeah. Or you replace one letter with something else, etc. So but yeah, this is because the meat industry just is trying to do everything to keep people away from like vegan products, because then they are losing profit.
Yeah, it's a threat to their business, right?
Yeah, and not just the names, but also the place where in the supermarkets you can get the products. There is like very hard push on laws to keep vegan products out of the regular quote unquote aisles, like for example to put the vegan milks away from the cow's milk, to put them in like health aisle, like the health section, the organic bio section of the store.
I think he wants to go outside. Give me one moment.
Okay, sorry, we are back. Michael had to open the balcony for our cat. Okay, so where was I? Yeah, the meat industry trying to do not so nice things.
Fighting for placement,
Yeah, and it's just like another example that shows how shitty the whole industry is. Also keeping myths alive that, for example, meat is necessary for growth, or milk will make your bones stronger, etc., which is just stupid, because milk is actually not good for the most of adult people. Like about 70% of the adult human population are lactose intolerant to some degree.
Yeah, well, also it's not the milk that makes your bones stronger, right? It's the calcium in the milk.
Exactly.
And to be honest, there's calcium in a lot of things other than milk that are a lot healthier than milk.
Also, some other components of milk, there are studies that show that milk might actually speed up osteoporosis. There is like conflicting studies, but it's safe to say that milk will not make your bones stronger. It's just...
or at least
it's one of the lies we've been told. It's one of the lies we've been told by the milk industry, like the happy cows on the milk cartons, on the green grass. Like, yes, there are some small farms like this, but the milk you buy was definitely not from it's definitely not from a cow that lived a life like that. Also, like, I as a kid, like not even as a kid, up until I became vegan, I thought that cows have to be milked, like that they just produce milk because of how they were bred. Like chickens, like wildlife chickens don't lay eggs all the time, but because of how we bred the animals, they do like more regularly. And I thought that it's the same with cows, that the way we just modify the animal over the years, it just produces milk, but that's not the case. In order for a female cow to provide milk, it needs to get pregnant and give birth to a calf, and only then it lactates. same as humans.
Which is an horrifying situation.
So that means that dairy cows, in order for the production to be possible, they are impregnated all the time and then separated from their children and then are milked. And then this whole process repeats itself, and then in the end they die anyway because they are brought to slaughterhouses and killed for their meat. So dairy cows have it actually worse than cows that are solely bred for meat production. Also, something that is important to notice, to say here, is that cows are actually quite intelligent animals and they form very deep bonds with each other. Cows actually mourn their dead like humans, and when another cow dies, they are sad and they sit next to the body, etc. So they experience sadness, and when a mother is separated from their child, she cries and is like really sad and actually gets depressed over time because she doesn't know where her child is. And that is just the animal aspect of the production, like just the suffering of the animals. And then there's the whole ecological aspect. I find it interesting. Oops, I just banged my hand against the table out of anger. I find it interesting also in this podcast how much we talk about animal suffering. Yeah. Because when I started with veganism, I did it because of environmental reasons.
Yeah, priority.
That was not the priority. For me, veganism was about the environment, then also health benefits. And then over the course of the 1.5 to 2 years, I started to get more interested in the animal aspect of it as well. But did not start out that way. And it's interesting because when I started to be vegan, I got a bunch of DMs of people saying that, oh yeah, like now you don't care about the animals as much, but just see, over time you will. And god damn it, they were right.
You're right. I had a few things that I wanted to say through your monologue, but you just kept going, so I couldn't comment.
I'm sorry, it's just I really hate what is happening in the dairy industry now when I know about it. And it's just like a rabbit hole. Once you start looking into it, you learn more and more and more horrifying, horrible things.
Yep.
I kind of like how this podcast just became bashing of the dairy industry.
Fuck the dairy industry. I can't say that word. But
you know what? Sorry to jump in again, but you know what I had to think about now?
What?
If anybody watches Superstore, the human cheese.
Oh god, boob cheese.
Boob milk.
Boob milk cheese.
Okay, this was just a little insider for anybody who watches Superstore.
It's a good show. We're not gonna stay on it for long, but I started watching it with Natalia, and then I was like, I think you'd really like that show, and she was like, I don't really feel like it, and then she started watching it, and now she's watching it without me.
No, I'm watching it mostly with you.
She's watching. I already watched most of it, so she's watching what I already watched, but without me. But yeah. Anyway,
yeah, it's basically a show about people working in
a Walmart, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Walmart, or for my Slovak listeners, like a Tesco.
It's a generic setting of a superstore, like a Walmart or a Tesco.
Yeah, and it's a comedy show about the workers there.
Yeah.
And one of them is trying to make a small business making cheese out of breast milk.
Yeah, so kind of gross. We agree. Anyway.
Actually, when they were talking about it's gross, I was like, yeah, no. Is it though? Is it gross?
Well, the idea of it, I guess, is not that bad, but the way he did it, which I don't want to spoil.
The way he did it in the show is disgusting. But breast milk by itself and cheese made out of breast milk is not that gross to me.
I still would not eat it, but yeah.
Look, it's the same logic as cow's milk. It also comes from an animal, and like. Well,
yeah, but if
have you tried breast milk ever in your life?
No, well, maybe I was a baby, I guess, but.
Well,
I mean.
Wow, okay, that was fucking stupid. I mean, after you were done being a baby, have you later in your life tried breast milk? Like, do you remember the taste?
No, I have not. No, I don't.
And would you want to try it?
I don't think so. I'm not particularly attracted to the idea. So no, I don't think I would.
Oh, I tried it. When my sister was born, I
Yeah.
tried it. It's nice. It tastes like milk mixed with honey. It's
Really?
very sweet.
Oh, that's interesting. See, maybe I would put it in my coffee.
See, so you would buy the boob cheese and boob milk from the show.
Well, I mean, that's one alternative way to make it poutine, but then again, it's not vegan.
Okay, this is a topic for another discussion, but like when you say breast milk is not vegan, then you're okay, let's not even go there. I think breast milk is vegan because it's not an exploitative animal product.
Well, we didn't really talk about how it was.
It's a basic necessity for a newborn, a human newborn. Like babies need breast milk.
But like, in order to have it produced in a significant enough manner that it would be readily available for consumption, do you really think it would be harvested? I want to use the word, but it sounds kind of weird.
Oh God, I just imagine huge factories with like, women producing breast milk. Oh God, that's like a Handmaid's Tale dystopian scenario.
Yeah, very dystopian.
Okay, so in that scenario, no. But I don't want to shame any like mothers like feeding their kids. Of course, you're still vegan if you feed your kid breast milk, and your kid also, like, if you raise it vegan, it is vegan if you give him breast milk, him or her.
Talking about dystopian, I just had this image of like a milk factory, coming out of boobs, but like, you know, like just artificially created boobs. So it's just like lines of boobs just hooked up, like, and no women behind it. No human behind it.
No human suffering.
Just boobs.
So like no human suffering involved. So it's like lab grown boobs in a factory.
Yeah, and that produces.
Wow.
Anyway.
Okay, let us know in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube if you would try cheese made out of human breast milk, or if you like as an adult tried breast milk. This is going in a really weird direction.
I mean, I think we would get a lot of parents that would try it, just because when you warm up breast milk, you usually try it to see if it's the proper. Yeah. So I'm guessing like a lot of yeses would be from parents.
Yeah, but I heard so many people say, "Oh yeah, breast milk so disgusting." Blah, blah, blah. But like
most of them are probably not parents. Yeah.
But like no, breast milk is not disgusting. It's like it's I don't even know how to say the proper word, but like it's one of the most natural things. It's like as stupid as saying, "Oh yeah, period blood is disgusting." No, it's not. But okay, let's not go into menstruation territory. Michael wanted to talk about calcium.
Well, not really. I wanted to transition from calcium to something else called the B12. Yeah, B12. I don't know about you, but when we started the journey of veganism, the concern that I was hearing a lot, me especially from my mother, because she's the one that had the most concerned about it, was about nutrition, and if I was getting enough vitamins and proteins and all that, kind of shebang.
Well, she was worried about you.
Yeah, exactly. No. I'm not saying like she was wrong about it. I'm saying that's one of the concerns that comes to mind when people talk about veganism. It's like, am I getting enough vitamins? Am I getting enough of this, enough of that? And I'd say one of the more prominent worries is about B12 or cobalamin. I fucking know how to pronounce this in English. It sounds a lot better in French.
Say it in French.
Cobalamin.
Cobalamin. It's a German word.
I have no idea.
Cobalamin.
Just say it with a different accent. Let's call it B12 because it's easier.
And the Slovak one, cobalamin.
Okay.
Cobalamin.
But I was doing some research on B12, and what I found is actually really, really interesting. Because we are taking some B12 supplements, because it's one of the nutrition thing that we thought was a thing that we had to do when we became vegan. Was like, okay, like most of the B12 we find nowadays in meat, so we have to take supplements to kind of like make sure we don't run into B12 deficiency. So B12 is one of the most important vitamins in our system, because notably it is responsible for the maturation of red blood cells in the bone marrow, and it's also responsible for creating the myelin layer. I don't know if you know what that is, but for those who don't, the myelin layer is basically the insulation sheet that's around your nerves to so the electricity stays in. So
It's important for healthy nerves and healthy blood cells.
yeah, exactly. So basically, when you don't consume enough B12, you develop something that's called anemia or B12 deficiency, and it causes you to be like super tired and have a weaker body in general, and it's really, really, really dangerous. Which is why it's one of the biggest concerns when people go vegan, because if you don't consume enough of it, like anemia is very dangerous. But what I found out while looking into it is that B12 deficiency is actually super, super rare, even within vegan, because our body is especially good at storing B12. Like, I'm assuming it comes from an evolutionary perspective, because it was not always readily available in everyday consumption, so it had to be stored for a longer period of time. But
yeah, because B12 is not a part of regular foods that we eat. It's actually found in dirt.
Yeah, it comes from cobalt.
Yeah,
Cobalt,
okay, but
yeah. Anyway,
B12 is in dirt, so people back in the days when everything wasn't so sanitized, they would get B12 just because the food that they would collect would have a bit of dirt on it, and they eat that. And now we have everything on like hygienic standards, which is great, but that also means that we lack B12 in our diets. So also for omnivores, like B12 is added to our food, also to meat, like cows, chickens, pigs, etc. They don't have B12 naturally in them. It's added through medicine, through shots, etc., or through their food that they consume.
Yeah, or when they eat grass, they also consume
Yeah, but mass production animals don't consume grass. So really doesn't make a big difference if you take a B12 supplement yourself directly, or if the cow you then eat takes the B12 supplement.
Okay, so the interesting thing about B12, just to put it in perspective, is that our body can actually store up to, we're going in little numbers here, but let's try and make it simple. Our body can store up to 2,000 to 5,000 micrograms of B12, up to 3 to 5 years. So we can store a big amount, just to put it in perspective, our body needs about 2 micrograms depending on a lot of circumstances. Like a pregnant woman or a breastfeeding woman is going to need more B12 every day than just a regular adult. But on average we need 2 micrograms of I'm trying to put it in perspective with just voice, because I can't show numbers, that's not visual. But an adult is going to need on average 2 micrograms of B12 a day, and our body can store 2,000 to 5,000 micrograms. That means that even if you stop taking B12 today, you're most likely not going to show B12 deficiency symptoms for a few years, which is why B12 deficiency is so rare, because our body is just really, really good at storing it.
But that's also at the same time the reason why B12 deficiency is so dangerous, because it's something that goes undetected for a long time. And people, for example, they are used to eating meat and getting their B12 from the meat. They don't take supplements or don't look into the nutrition values of food. They become vegan. They are good for like a year or two or whatever,
and then it hits
them. They start developing huge health issues. I just want to say that this is something that also happens. So,
100%. Like, I'm not saying they'll be aware of what you're eating, because it's not gonna happen. It's just it just shows how important it is to be informed about it. And even us, we're taking B12 supplements, and I have them with me. And when I was saying that we need on average 2 micrograms of B12 a day, the vitamins here that I have, each pill contains 1,000 micrograms. So we're actually consuming a lot more B12 if we take these every day than what we actually need. But when we go vegan, it's like, oh, make sure you have all the vitamins, make sure it just...
Yeah, so if I forget to take B12...
it's not drastic. You're not going to run into B12 deficiency if you don't take your B12 pill for a few days or a few weeks even.
But also the vegan cheese, they add it to vegan products too. It's just that taking supplements puts you more on the safe side.
Yeah.
because of our like busy lives and everything, it's not always possible to have like the super richest diet, so supplements are a safe way to go. But we don't eat like many supplements. We have the B12 supplement, then in the winter D vitamin, but that's something for everybody. Also because Canada, so
What do you mean? It's unrelated.
And for me personally, because of my period, I have a pretty heavy menstruation and really low blood pressure. I also take iron. Iron is something I personally need, and a lot of menstruating women also have iron deficiencies. Iron deficiency is actually much more common than other deficiencies like B12.
Yeah, no, you're not the first person that I hear that's having to take more iron. My mother had to take more iron when I was younger. Like, it was just there. I think it's just a thing that, like, if you're gonna lose a lot of blood, like menstruating women, it's kind of a thing that you should be aware of.
Well, menstruating people.
Thank you.
We are working on our vocabulary.
Yeah, getting there.
Trying to be more inclusive. It's just, breaking old habits.
Exactly. And, the thing about B12 too is that with the people having plant-based diet being more prevalent, and having more and more vegans out there, more and more of the food that we eat and we consume is fortified with B12 vitamins. And the interesting thing about fortified food is that the B12 you're going to find in, example, the soy milk or, other kinds of milk or whatever that's fortified with B12 vitamins, is that those B12 fortifications are actually much easier to process by our body than the ones the ones you're going to find in meat. Yeah. So for some people that have, for example, like colon problems or that don't process food properly, it's a lot easier for them to absorb B12 coming from fortified food than coming from a piece of steak, for example.
Like my favorite vegan cheese that we finally found in Canada.
Yeah.
The brand is called Violife, not sponsored, but it's really fucking good. Their Parmesan cheese is so delicious, and all their cheese is also B12 in them.
Hey, if Violife representative out there is listening and you want to sponsor,
please sponsor us.
I'll take all the Violife I can for free, you know what I'm saying?
All right. Do you have something else you want to add?
I think we've been going at it for a while now. I think.
I just wanted to mention quick at the end some pros and cons that we noticed on ourselves during our times of being vegan. Just how the vegan diet changed our lives. Just a quick list.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about like digestive problems.
Yeah.
So for me, for a long time, I was having issues with bloating. So not just during my period, but overall, like I am a super skinny person, but I would eat something and I would bloat right away, and it didn't really matter what it was.
Definition of food baby.
Or not even, even now I still have a food belly sometimes, but it's mostly around the time of my period when I get more bloated.
Yeah.
Overall, though, after going vegan, it really helped me with bloatiness. Like, I don't get bloated almost never, except for like my period times, or when I really eat a lot of food or like drink or something. But like back when I was omnivore, I would eat like a piece of, I don't know, chicken or just a cheese sandwich. Yeah, I would get bloated as hell. And it's for those of you who've got the same issue, you know how unpleasant that is. I would generally have digestive issues and stuff like that, so that got a lot better since I became vegan. Generally, I feel like I don't hit as like big like lows during the day. You know, like tiredness. I mean, I feel like my energy is much more balanced during the day. I don't crash so much, and if I am really tired, I feel like I need shorter naps to get me back on track.
Interesting.
Another thing that made a huge difference for me is something called food coma. So when you eat a lot, you get like super tired and just not able to do much. Yeah. I don't really get that anymore. Like I eat a lot, but I don't feel as heavy after eating more.
Oh, I know what you mean.
And just generally, I feel like health-wise, it's been going pretty well. Like, I was trying to see if my period would get better because some people were saying that. For my period, I can't really say if if it was veganism that helped it, because I feel like it got a bit better, but at the same time I also wasn't taking contraceptive like the pill anymore. So yeah, I think it was maybe a combination of it. I still get like bad periods, but I feel like they are like the bad periods, the really bad days I feel like are shorter. Like it's not a whole week of bad days anymore.
Yeah.
But I don't really know if that's like if
Yeah,
it was what it was.
there's
like,
other
like
things that you
could
change
be also
as well,
age.
right? Yeah.
Could be, I don't
Well,
know.
there's also like you've become more conscious about your coffee consumption and your periods.
Oh yeah, that too. Actually,
like there's a lot of you've been looking into it a lot in the past year and a half. So
coffee, for example, makes my cramps much worse and things like that. So I was just generally looking more into nutrition. But veganism was one of the things that made me look into nutrition. So I don't know. Honestly, I can't say from this part, but I know that people have been saying that it helped with their period. So considering things that got worse with veganism, I don't really have a point there. Just I guess convenience from a perspective of when I'm somewhere, not always there is like vegan alternatives. But it's getting like much better over the years. Like just the flying thing that I mentioned. Like when I flew with Air Canada, like the last time, they had the vegan alternative. You could check like if you want vegan.
Yeah, you need to tell them usually ahead of time if you have like But yeah, they do now.
Like travel wise, sometimes you go to countries where you just can't like have vegan alternatives.
Yeah.
But else than that, like I don't really have any issues. Just
No, for me, what's a big pro I would say about veganism is that it didn't change much for me, which is. For me, I consider it to be a big
that's
pro.
a big benefit. Like, I don't feel like I'm spending more money on food.
Yeah, exactly.
That's also something that people say, but that's because when you eat only like the vegan alternatives to, I don't know, meat, the cheese, etc. Like, vegan cheese is more expensive than regular cheese, but
that's literally as if like you would buy like marinated meat from the grocery store and eat it every day. Like, it's gonna be hella expensive if you do that. Like,
it depends on it depends what you eat. You can be vegan and spending more money on food, but you can also go vegan and spend less money on food than when you were omnivore.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it depends on the person.
Yeah, exactly.
How you spend your money.
Yeah, and when it comes to vegetables and stuff, it's the same principle. Like, if you get something that's if you base your diet around the stuff that's in season and stuff that's like not as expensive. Of course, if you try to buy mangoes in the middle of winter, it's like you're gonna pay for it, right?
Yeah, that's also a big aspect of like sustainability that we haven't really touched on, like seasonal food, like local and seasonal food. But this, as you can see, this conversation, this topic
so
is very rich.
Yeah.
There's so much to say.
And for me, like I'd say, I guess the big con for me would be that, like I love poutine. For those who don't know what it is yet, I know we probably talk about poutine a decent amount, but for those that don't know what poutine is, it's basically fries, cheese curds, and gravy. So obviously not vegan, but it's a dish that I love, and it's kind of a con because I'm not having it as much as I would have before, but at the same time I'm discovering the vegan alternatives too.
Yeah,
like there is vegan poutine, right?
We found a really good.
And so exactly some of them are good, and then it's getting better as well in terms of like the quality of the cheese and vegan cheese.
I think what I could like kind of compare it to, not like what poutine is, but the feeling of what Michael like is experiencing. The issue is like for my Slovak listeners, brinzové halušky. So brinza is not vegan.
So basically mac and cheese, but like fancy.
Not at all mac and cheese. God, now you're insulting the whole Slovak kitchen.
I'm sorry. I actually did try it the first time I went to Slovakia. It's really good.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so for that, like I can compare it to that. But also, I have a cooking book that has a vegan brinzové halušky recipe. I haven't tried it yet, so I need to try it. But I just want to compare it to, like, there's so many restaurants in Slovakia that that serve brinzové halušky,
Mm-hmm.
and I haven't found a vegan brinzové halušky restaurant in Slovakia yet. So if you
Really?
have any tips, let me know.
But yeah, in terms of pros and cons, I think like I haven't seen much difference. Like I have better energy. Yes, I'm not as like tired when I eat big portions of food. Like I think I would have the same kind of issue when I would eat like a big portion of meat, where after that I would need to sit for like an hour just to like kind of process it. And I don't really get that anymore.
I think it's the same.
Yeah.
Just the same as I
Yeah.
have. Just one important thing I want to add is that so when you switch your diet, your bacteria in your intestines need some time to adapt. So for the first month or two of you being vegan, you might experience more bloatiness, but that will go away. And if it doesn't go away, go see a doctor. But it should go away.
Also, the funny thing about not eating cheese or drinking milk is that I did have a poutine after not having any dairy for a while, and let me tell you something: my body was not prepared for dairy products at all, and I don't think I'm like lactose intolerant at this point, but like it felt like I was.
You might be like lactose sensitive.
Yeah, that's kind of what it felt like.
Yeah. Oh, actually, see, we didn't talk about this.
There's a lot of things we didn't talk about.
So when I was in Slovakia, I worked as a barista for about half a year. And when you create coffees with milk in them, like the milk foam, you have some excess milk, like milk that's just not used. You know, you foam it and then it's a bit too much sometimes. Over the time, I got better at it, at like reducing my milk waste. But there is like at the end of the day, there's some milk that gets thrown away. So with that thrown away milk, I did kind of like the same experiment as with the meat. I tried to make myself a cappuccino with that milk that would get otherwise thrown away.
That didn't end well, did it?
And both of the times I tried that, I would have belly aches after that and I would get super bloated, which I did not have the same problem with almond milk or soy milk or oat milk, etc.
Yeah, well, just so that our body gets used to different things, right? And it's really interesting in the case of milk because it's basically like you don't tolerate more. I don't know. I feel like it's weird, but it's probably
normal.
But
I think we had the same problem before too. We just didn't notice it.
I don't know. Like the belly aches that I'm feeling now when I eat cheese.
Worse than before. Yeah, maybe. But for me, at least, like I would get bloated before too. So I think I actually am lactose intolerant. I just didn't know it.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So I think we came to the end of this podcast. I'm just looking at the time now, and we talked for a while. If you like this podcast, if you're watching it on YouTube, we would be very happy if you would leave a like or a comment or support us by sharing this podcast. We'd be very grateful if you would leave us a review. Hopefully good.
Hopefully.
Please don't leave us bad reviews just because you don't agree with some things we said in this podcast.
Actually, if you don't agree with something we said in this podcast, please leave a comment. We can talk.
Yeah, but don't be like, 1 star because you talked about breast milk and I find that disgusting.
Breast cheese. We're going to talk about this one for a while.
If you want to hear or see more from us, I have a YouTube channel, which is in Slovak though, so for Slovak and Czech listeners or people who speak those languages. You can also check out our Instagram accounts. It's at Natalia Muchova.
Or at michael.leb.
And I have also a TikTok account that you can check out as well. The next time we would like to talk about LGBTQ plus rights and just in the spirit of the Pride Month, which is going on currently. And then there are also some news from Europe that I would like to discuss with human rights, etc. There's some shitty things happening in Hungary, and also just the Slovak people reacting to it really badly, unfortunately. But that's going to be a topic for the next episode.
And hopefully this time there's not a global pandemic that's going to push us away and prevent us from doing another podcast for 9 months.
Yeah. Also, in our last episode, we mentioned that we wanted to talk about racism with some people that we have over. We're gonna do that eventually too, but
it's on the list.
It's on the list. Like, there have been some things going on and just some scheduling issues and COVID and etc. So, but we have it on our minds. We definitely not forgetting about this. Thank you so much for listening, and we see, hear, or whatever each other at the next episode of our podcast, Couple to Go.
Bye.
Bye.